exactly how to start once I hit the recording button, because it always feels disingenuous. I'm always like, "Hi," but like we've actually been on the call for a second already.
Right, so that's all good.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, how are you, dude? How are you feeling?
Today has been rough. I feel like my mood has progressively gotten worse over the day, and like it's just really bad now.
Any particular reason why?
Probably being on Twitter too much. I
I
keep
see.
seeing people like being really happy and having all these accomplishments and talking about like their friends and everything, and it's never a great place to be when all that's happening.
I see. So I was originally going to ask if you're a doom scroller, but it's actually the opposite. It's actually not that you're a doom scroller. It's that you look at people's highlight reels and compare it to your whole life.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny how that can have like the opposite effect and everything.
Yeah, totally. Because you see like all of these people, like you see the little snippets that people are posting of like the best moments of their life, and you're like, wow, everyone's life is amazing, and mine sucks.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like also I feel like if I had something good going on, like I post it, but like I have legitimately nothing good to talk about. It's like I almost barely ever talk on Twitter. It's not like venting and everything. It's like if other people are struggling, they sure don't show it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that that is definitely. I think that like there's a lot of evidence to show that that is the case. That like one of the reasons that like social media is so harmful, like one of the big harms that social media is doing, is that like people growing up in the social media era are having this exact problem that like they are comparing themselves to these like impossible standards. And when we think about that, like we often think about it as like models, um like who are unbelievably skinny and photoshopped and like don't actually look like that at all. But I think that it's also just in the day-to-day, like everyday people that are posting that also aren't showing the full story and are only showing their highlight reel.
Yeah. Even knowing that, like I still see things that like I can't accomplish. Like I see people posting art that looks really good. I saw someone post that like he got partnered today, and I was supposed to feel happy when that happens, and I'm just like, oh, that's something I can never see. People saying they're in relationships, which I don't have or haven't had for many years. Um, so it's like tangible stuff where, sure, like things could be going on behind the scenes, but I can see things that I don't have right in front of me.
I see. So it's like yeah, things could be going on behind the scenes, but like even the highlights don't seem like anything that I could ever achieve.
Right.
I see. I see. And it also sounds like that there's a lot of like sort of like jealousy or like envy tied up in it, that it's like the why do these people have this and I don't.
Oh yeah, there's a ton. I mean, like browsing Twitter, browsing Twitch, see it all the time. It's hard for me to even go on other people's streams a lot because like I see all the viewers they have and all the things they're getting, and um, feel like it's like I want that. Why can't I have that?
Yeah. Do you have any sort of like ideas at about where that jealousy might be stemming from, like where it might have started?
Um, I don't know. It's kind of always been there, or at least like it's been there as long as I've been on Twitch. Not as long, because like when I started, I mean, I was just playing video games and talking to people, and I was like, oh, people actually want to watch me. That's cool.
Hmm.
Um, it feels like it was about like 8 months in the streaming that it happened.
Yeah, that does seem to sort of be the progression of Twitch, is like you start out and you're like, I'll just play some video games and it'll be fun. And then like people start coming by and you're like, oh wow, people are coming by, this is amazing. And then very quickly it turns into like, oh, like maybe I could actually make something about the like make something of this. And as soon as you have that thought, it like the like jealousy and envy and like comparing yourself begins. And like it always results in this like I can no longer, because the other thing that I heard from what you express is like, I want to be happy, and like feel free to tell me if I'm wrong about this, but like I want to be happy for my friend who just got partnered, but I can't because I'm too jealous and like hate that I can't have that. Is that
Right.
accurate?
Like, yeah, I think I've known people that have, or I've gotten to know a bunch of streamers before they've gotten partner, and like every time they hit it, I'm like, I should be really happy for them. And like a couple I was, because I've known them really well and I know they work really hard and what they do has real value. But then like other people that I know cursory, it happens, and yeah, I'm just like I should feel happy, but I can't.
For sure, for sure. And when I know a little about your story from when I talked to you on your stream, but when you came to Twitch, because I remember that part of your story was that you actually were sort of like kicking butt and taking names. Like you were like just killing everything that you were doing. And then like you hit a bump in the road and it seems like everything has sort of like gone downhill from there. So when you came to Twitch, were you already like on that downhill path?
Yeah, I would say so. It was kind of a weird reprieve when I started streaming,
Mm-hmm.
because I had just quit my first full time job like a few months ago, and I was freelancing, and I had just gotten like a freelance position at a robotics startup that was really fulfilling for the first bit that I did it, and
Mm-hmm.
so things were good. I mean, my commute was super long, but I just got like a new computer, and it's like, oh, I can. I'm playing a lot of Splatoon. I can go talk to people while I do this. So I thought it was a good thing to try. I wasn't like really down in the dumps, but I was definitely on my decline.
Sure, sure. And remind me a little bit, was the job at that robotics company sort of the first, because I remember we struck upon this sort of like little nugget when we talked last time of like sort of your first taste of like failure. Was the job at the robotics company that first taste of failure, or was it something else?
No, no. First taste of failure was definitely when I was broken up with, and then kind of like nearing college when I decided, oh, I don't really like programming anymore, but I'm gonna graduate anyways because I'm a year away. And then tasted failure even more when I was working at Google, and like they put me on a project that I absolutely hated, and I couldn't like focus on work at all. I was sitting there doing nothing all day, and like still getting. I mean, I still got decent performance reviews for some reason, but like even after going taking time off to like do an outpatient program in a hospital and like doing another like disability leave, like I just couldn't stand it there anymore, and I had to leave.
Hmm. And that was all after you, because you said that the first taste of failure was the sort of being broken up with, and so like all of that sort of came after and was sort of like the pouring. It started raining and all of a sudden it poured.
Right. Like I don't even know if the breakup triggered all that stuff that happened, because during my relationship, like I already noticed I was coding less for fun.
Mm.
So I don't know whether it caused it or not. It probably accelerated it a little bit.
Okay. Okay. And what man, I have a few different topics that I wrote down just as like ideas that we could go into if if we come to it. And so I'm trying to sort of like navigate between like all the questions I want to ask. So when you when you stopped, when you sort of started like falling out of love with coding, what was that like for you? Like, was it scary? Did you not care? What was it like?
Oh, it was really scary. I had always seen other people that like hated what they were doing for work,
Hmm.
and I was the whole time I was like really fortunate and lucky because I was like, I'm not gonna be like them. I love what I do. I'm really good at what I do.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Like everything's perfect. And yeah, it was definitely a shock. Like, wow. I still kind of held on to some denial. Like maybe once I get through school I can take a little break and um, then maybe I'll be put on an interesting position at work and just kind of focus on other stuff in life, but that's not what happened.
And I think that I'm remembering a missing piece right now, which is that like uh wasn't there some like you went to some camp or some workshop or something and it didn't go well and it really affected sort of your like confidence with coding. Wasn't there something like that or am I making that up?
I don't think I remember anything like that.
I might have just made it up. I don't know why. Anyway, so okay, so then I'm curious about do you feel like that there was any sort of like inciting incident for what sort of caused like your decline of love of coding?
Not really. I think my life just kind of like changed when I had a really good summer. The summer I got into my first relationship.
Yeah,
I figured out my sexuality for the first time,
yeah,
and like for suddenly the whole new world opened where like I could have love because I always thought I was supposed to find like a girl or something. I every time I saw one, I'm just like, oh, she's nice, I guess.
yeah,
That's all it was. So I started to focus on like something different in my life, and I think that summer is like the first time I wasn't like just had my head in code 24/7.
mm.
I just I still did it and liked it, but there was other stuff going on.
Yeah. So it almost sounds like you found a new passion, which was your relationship, and it sort of like faded coding out. And then when the relationship was no longer there, like the passion for coding didn't come back. Like you still were
Yeah,
yearning for that relationship.
it was like, oh, well, Cody is my reason to live, and then that summer, like, oh, this guy is my reason to live. Just completely switched over, and I feel like the floor just dropped out from under me when that ended.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's funny. I actually just did one of these tentacle tantras with a friend of mine named Cuddle, and we were talking about a concept that I think applies here too. That I'm actually currently like struggling with and working through, and that is that both her and I, and it sounds like you as well, have a tendency to make other people our center instead of sort of like being our own center. And what happens when you do that is that like when your center is like okay and good and in place, everything around like you know a plane like a lightning bolt could strike right next to you and like it wouldn't matter, you wouldn't care, everything would still be good. But then when that center isn't okay, it doesn't matter if somebody comes up and gives you $1 million, everything sucks, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so like the path that I'm currently like going on and like trying to help others with as well is like working on like finding my own center and like sort of uh not making other people my center, because what really blew my mind was that like my therapist said to me like you don't need like a specialist person, like you don't that it's actually not good to have a specialist person the way that you're having one. And I couldn't even comprehend it when she first said it. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you not have that? And she was like, because it's actually really limiting. It actually really uh, handicaps you in a lot of ways because you're dependent upon this other person. Um, what do you think about that?
I'm not really sure what you mean entirely by a specialist person.
So like, I think that it's the same concept as having someone as your center. So like, instead of I think that a lot of the time where it comes from, and you'll have to tell me if you relate to this. I know that for me it's like this. It comes from that like you weren't allowed to be your own center. You had to be someone else's center. Like oftentimes when we're young, oftentimes with our parents, because that's where a lot of our stuff comes from. Um, like you sort of had to be the like caretaker. Like you had to sort of fill in for other people, and so what that does is it develops this sort of dynamic where instead of being strong in who you are and another person being strong in who they are and you both sort of standing together, you sort of like intermingle and like you know uh, all your tentacles get crossed. And so then whenever like the left person isn't okay, the right person also isn't okay. Rather than like if the left person is okay, the right person is, like there to comfort them and can be okay. So like specialist person is just like that, having that dynamic within your relationships.
So kind of like people like filling in the gaps for each other and being codependent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think codependency is probably a good way to put it. I think that it might have a little bit more nuance than codependency, but I think like it's a good place to start. What do you think about what do you think about sort of let's just start with codependency. Like what do you think about the concept of codependency?
It's scary. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Hmm.
Even when things were good in my relationship, I was worried about him all the time when I didn't hear from him that day. Like I felt like part of me was missing, and
Yeah,
like people always tout it as such a good thing, but it's not consistent, and it really
right.
can just fall apart.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. And that, I mean, it really does sound to me like part of you was ripped away from when that breakup occurred, and like it it hasn't healed and you haven't been able to sort of like put the pieces back together.
hmm Like I always, when I was with him, like I thought of us as like two halves of a whole, and then I was just a half, and
Right.
I don't even know like how I was a whole person before,
Mhm.
honestly, or if it even was like, because before then I had no concept of romance whatsoever.
Mhm.
It was almost like things just were better with me not knowing what else was out there.
Yeah, so from like what I just heard, like you're basically saying that like you're walking around now every day as half of a person.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Um, there are things that like I want to do or want to get into,
Mhm.
and I try to do them by myself, and they just don't feel right.
Hmm. What is that? Could you give me an example?
I guess trying to think. Like I've been getting a lot into board gaming recently, which is not much fun at all solo. I mean, there are solo games, but um, I've been still playing with games with my mom a little bit,
Yeah.
so that's something. But when I think about other things, like for example, like watching anime or something, like I can do it by myself, but I have to be doing something else at the same time.
Mhm.
And I used to just be able to watch it.
Why what happens if you try to watch anime and not do something else?
I just get on my phone like while I'm watching it, and it's just automatic. Like I can't stop myself. I'm like, what's happening here and what's happening here, and look at the same things and probably the same awful social media scrolling that makes me
That was
miserable
so
happens at the same time. And then I don't even focus on the anime. I'm like, what happened? Oh no, I missed something.
Why do you think that that urge is there?
Uh, I equate it to a lot of stuff that happened in college with professors in lectures. Like I could not once I got the ability to like go on my phone during lectures, I was never not on that because people would talk and my brain runs faster than they talk, and so I'm processing things like way too fast. So I need something to fill in the gaps, but then it fills in like too many gaps, and suddenly I'm lost and need to study on my own.
Hmm. What's this conversation like for you right now?
Um, it's actually all right. Like I'm not looking at anything else. I mean, there's a stream on the other monitor, but I'm not really watching it.
I love it. I love it. Uh, okay, and why do you think that that in this conversation it's not like you don't feel that compulsion?
It's very personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's very improvement focused. Um, I don't know. It's real time. Like I'm active in it, I guess, which
Hmm.
is one thing.
Yeah,
Like it's not like I can just doze off and still keep part in it.
I see. I see. So, uh, I don't have any sort of like expertise to like make any sort of like diagnosis or anything, but I have learned a little bit about ADHD, and one of the cool things that I've learned that seems to sort of apply in the situation, not to say that you have ADHD or anything, but just like it seems similar, is that a lot of people think about ADHD as like the brain isn't working correctly or like the brain isn't working well enough. But what I've learned is that people with ADHD, it's not that their brain isn't working correctly. It's actually that it works too well. Like there's like too much RAM, and so they need other stuff to like sort of like satisfy it, because otherwise it's just idling. Like it's just like you have this, I'm not enough of a nerd to be able to come up with a good, what's a really amazing like computer, like your brain is a supercomputer and you're running like
I
RuneScape
guess
on it.
multi-threading maybe is what it would
Yeah,
be.
it's like some like multi-threading computer and you're like running like RuneScape on it, and like your computer's like, I need to do more, this is boring, I hate
Yeah.
this.
I mean, actually, literally, when I try to play video games off stream right now, I feel like bored and like my brain is running really fast. Like I need to do something else.
Yeah.
Um, and it's weird. Like before streaming, I could play video games and not worry about that. But now that I've had the opportunity to do something else while playing video games, it's like
Yeah.
I can't go back.
So I'm gonna ask you something that might sound kind of weird. It might not relate at all, but it might also be like a magical moment that totally relates. Do you find that your brain is sort of like it's sort of like layers of thoughts? Like you sort of have like 10 thoughts going at once?
I think so. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. Sometimes, like when I lay down and just rest for a while, my brain just like goes all sorts of places all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's kind of like that. Sometimes like I can be thinking about nothing but think about everything at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And is it sometimes sort of does it sometimes keep you from feeling like you can experience things fully?
Yeah, I think so. Cause yeah, it's like if it's all places at once, it doesn't stay in one spot ever for
Right.
too much.
Right. And so like the thought that you're trying to keep is being like pulled in all of these different directions from like these like 20 other thoughts that are bumping around in your brain.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like I mean, it's hard for me to even like watch someone stream without doing something at the same time.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
I miss stuff in their stream, and
totally.
then yeah,
I also have a hard time just watching streams. I think it's because there's a lot of with streaming, just the nature of the platform, like there's usually a lot of like not climactic moments, you know what I mean? Whereas like on like YouTube
right.
videos or something, like it's like edited down to the like core content. But on streams, like there's a lot of, you're the person sitting there playing some games or whatever.
Right, right. It makes sense why it's hard for people to stay interested for a long time.
Totally. Yeah.
Like when I see it from a viewer perspective, but when I'm from a streamer perspective, I'm like, wait, why did this person say like two things and then not talk anymore? What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. There I relate deeply to that dichotomy where like I am busy a lot and don't make it to a lot of streams. And, but then like when I have an event and people don't make it, I'm like, well, hold on a minute. Why didn't they come to my stream? Yeah, I definitely relate. Um, I wanted to sort of circle back for a second to the board game conversation, because one, I actually really love board games. Like a lot of my favorite childhood memories are playing board games with my family. And like the way that I structure my stream, like the reason that I like playing Jackbox so much, like I actually like playing Jackbox, unlike a lot of streamers, is because it gives me
I
that
mean,
sort
I'm
of like
guilty of. Oh
actually
yeah, I'm
enjoying
guilty of
Jackbox.
playing Jackbox, but not actually liking it sometimes.
Oh, fair enough, fair enough. Um, is because it gives me that sort of like game night vibe that I used to have with my family, and I really love that. So I'm just curious for you, like, uh, I'm curious to hear more about your sort of like board game endeavors and what you've been doing with that.
Right. I started going to a board game meetup a few weeks ago. Um, just because it's like, oh yeah, I'm vaccinated, so it's okay to go see people again. I've been wanting to do it the whole time, like during the pandemic, and just hasn't been possible. So
Yeah.
it's been nice to actually have that happen. And the same time, like I've been really like researching a lot of stuff about new games, and um, it's been exciting to like learn a bunch of new stuff.
Yeah.
And in a way, I don't know why, but board games engage me more than video games most of the time. Like I think actually, if I had to like only choose one of them, I would pick board games
I think
to only play for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think that in a lot of ways, just the way that they're engineered, like video games are designed to sort of like walk you through the steps, you know? Like to sort of like take you from point A to point B because like that's the reason that a lot of people play video games is sort of like to escape the like you know exhausting brain work that comes with everyday life. But I'm really getting the sense with you, Brownie, that you actually have the opposite problem. That you are incredibly bored with life and need things that challenge your brain.
Yeah, I'd say that's about right. Like board games are probably more challenge
Yeah.
than video games a lot of the time. Even if video games are hard, like I know there's a solution in there. Because you first have to learn the rules and like execute them right, and then you figure out the best way to play within the rules,
Hmm.
and then the best way to counter the way other people try to win.
Yeah. And like unlike like I experienced this when I started playing Hearthstone because I started out my first ever trading card game was Yu-Gi-Oh and I was obsessed with Yu-Gi-Oh, but I never played it online or anything. I always played it like with my cousins and like by myself. Like I would just play against myself. Um, and so then when I found Hearthstone, it was so cool that I had infinite people to play with. But what wasn't cool was because it's online, how like quickly metas get established. That like I lost a lot of the creativity and like one of my favorite things with Yu-Gi-Oh is deck building, and I sort of lost that opportunity with Hearthstone because you can't really beat the net decks. Like once the meta is established, like you play one of those decks, or like you're probably not gonna climb the ladder. You know. So like with board games, like in a similar way with board games, like you get to really sort of like experiment and define versus in like again like video games, everything is sort of like set and defined.
Yeah. So I think I had the same experience that you had with Hearthstone with like competitive Pokemon. Like I used to go
Mm,
on the simulators all the time and try to win with like stupid strategies that like not many people were using, and I can
right.
only get so far
Right.
by and the people that were like copy and pasting the same teams were always winning.
Yep.
So it got kind of frustrating. With board games, it's different because like everybody's on an even playing field,
Exactly.
unless it's an asymmetric board game, which actually one of my favorites is that. But
What
still,
are asymmetric board games?
where people start off with different different like conditions. So one of my favorite board games is called Root, and barely anybody will ever play it with me because it's super complicated.
Okay.
But you have like four different, or not four different. There's like eight different at this point, but like everybody plays a different faction of animals that's trying to like take control of forests,
Okay.
and the game is not like super balanced. Some of the factions are a little bit better than the others,
Okay.
but it's still interesting hearing the strategy of how people play them to the best of their ability.
Yeah. Have you ever played a board game called Titan?
I haven't heard of that.
You haven't heard of it?
Nope.
Oh, okay, okay. My father-in-law really likes the game Titan, and they ended up making an app of the board game, just like they have like an app of Risk, and we played it for a little while. But my father-in-law, sorry, there's stuff underneath my feet and it's annoying me. My father-in-law got really frustrated because the like dice mechanics were not done well enough that like he could tell that it wasn't rolling like actual dice, and it just drove him crazy and we couldn't play anymore.
Oh dang! Like the dice weren't coming out as expected.
Yeah, like I would be going up against him and I would roll like a ridiculous amount of sixes or whatever that like would never happen on real dice, and like it would happen on a like relatively regular basis given like certain like sets of circumstances in the game. And he was like, I can't do it anymore. So so we stopped playing. But
Jeez, that's really strange.
it sounds like a similar kind of game where like there's sort of like different like you sort of like build different like armies, or like not armies but like different types of creatures and like things like that, and then end up coming up with some sort of strategy to, and there's like different like land types and all sorts of things in the game. But anyway, um I do want to, because I know that the like original thing that made me ask you if you wanted to do this was our conversation that we were having in Discord um about some of the things that you were really struggling with streaming. And so I do want to like, I for sure want to touch on those. I think that a lot of the I think that a lot of the stuff that you're experiencing with streaming is, I don't even know the right word for it, but I'll just sort of tell you my experience and why I think this. So when I when I was streaming, I streamed for a while on a, when I first started streaming, I streamed on a channel called Snake Tech, and it was a duo stream, and we streamed together all the time. And then I decided to go off on my own, and I was streaming on my own. And while I was streaming on my own, I kept running into these periods of burnout where just like just like I was talking about, where like when your center gets sort of like displaced, like no matter what, like everything around you starts to seem bad. So like when I would start getting like burned out on stream, I like it would be the same people who like, I love, and I love having around my community and everything, but like all of a sudden like they all seemed bad, and I would not enjoy talking to them, and like wouldn't be able to stream. And it got so regular that I was burning out like this, that one of my friends wrote me and was like, dude, like it's getting so regular that like I can predict it. It's like, oh, 3 months, Tech's about to burn out again. Like it was really, really bad. And it got so bad that it got to the point where like I almost like deleted everything, like my account, my Discord, just like my entire community. I like deleted all the apps off my phone. Like I was just like out. um and what I discovered was that it actually didn't have anything to do with streaming for me. For me, what it had to do with was I realized that there was a part of myself that I really hated, And I didn't know that because I really liked I've always really liked my personality. Um, but I'd never really been crazy about my looks. And I was like, that's fine. I don't have to be crazy about my looks. But what I didn't realize is that when you like hate a part of yourself like that, it sort of seeps into like all parts of you, and you really can't sort of like selectively hate. It just sort of spreads. Um, and so I had this huge moment in my life where I sort of realized that I like could be beautiful and that I did find myself beautiful. It was just in a different way. And since then, I haven't run into Burnout again, and I've been streaming for I think like a year or two since that point, and like there hasn't been Burnout. And so because of that, I hypothesize, given everything that we've talked about this time and last time, that a lot of the issues that you're facing are because of sort of like the fact that you are walking around as half a person all the time. Like, dude, that sounds awful. Sounds like I wouldn't want to get up in the morning.
Yeah, and a lot of times I don't. Like, well, I mean, nowadays I'm on like meds that put me to sleep really well, and it's hard to get up anyways. But
Yeah.
it's still like a lot of days I'm like, oh, I just really don't want to do this today. And I only get up out of bed because I'm bored or like because someone would notice if I didn't get out of bed.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you have people that notice if you don't get out of bed. Is that like the people that you live with, or is it like your streaming community, or?
Kind of both.
That's good.
I mean, my parents would know something's up, but I mean, when it's not summer, then they're not home and they wouldn't notice if I waited till like 4 to get up.
Sure.
Except I don't think I could stay in bed that long. But I guess my stream schedule a lot kept me getting out of bed because I had to. I was like, oh, I need to be live at 12 p.m. Okay, let's do this. Or like people will notice and something will happen.
Yeah. And what do you think would happen if you didn't show up for stream?
I kind of wonder, but there's like one person that's always in the chat like before I start streaming,
That's
and I
nice.
don't think all that much would happen. Like that one person might sit there for a while and go, "What's up?" and then realize it's not happening. So maybe when I think about it that way, there's not much consequence. I
I hope.
think most people don't even look at my schedule. They just get the notification. They're like, "Okay, here I am."
Sure, sure. Well, I hope that I didn't just take away some like vital like survival mechanism that you've been holding on to.
Oh, it's
What?
not. Don't worry about that.
Okay, good. Um, so one of the things that I just want to sort of like acknowledge in this conversation is that like I think that th- the fact that you're walking around as half of a person is probably one of the roots of the issue. I also am not sure how to fix it, but I but I feel you. Like maybe not in the exact same way, but there's like a couple of different pieces. One, I like I said, I'm also somebody who like had someone as my center for a very long time and am now in the process of like removing them, and so like I know how excruciating that is. And then two, I also know like when I was in school, I I would every night stay up as late as I possibly could because I didn't want to go to bed and wake up the next day to go to school because I hated school. I hated it. So waking up was just miserable for me. So I feel you, and like one of the big reasons that I wanted to do this with you is because like I wanted to be there, like say that like I'm here for you, dude, and like try to offer some sort of value for you, and maybe like try to work through something to sort of help restore that other half of you, like a starfish. Have you heard that about starfishes?
I haven't actually.
You can cut them in half, and they'll grow into two starfish.
Somehow I didn't know that. Even like I dissected a starfish in biology class and still didn't know that somehow.
Don't go around cutting starfish in half now. That's not nice. I'm sure it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, well, when I started streaming, I lived near the ocean, but yeah, now I can't do that anymore.
So, um, I'm just gonna ask and see sort of where it takes us. How do you think we could start restoring your other half?
That's a good question. Like I'm very lost on how, because I feel like it's almost like it's not even one person that like completes me nowadays. It's like multiple people. Like,
Mm.
oh, this person comes by and they're really fun to talk to. I need to lead on this person. Oh wait, all of a sudden they're gone. Oh no, what do I do? And like I have these like mini crises all the time where someone drops out of communication and I'm just kind of lost for a while.
Yeah, that sounds like the streaming curse, dude. Like, I think that every streamer struggles with that. Where like,
Yeah. Actually, I think I heard it in one of your videos.
yep,
The exact same thing.
yep, absolutely, and
You get attached to a person.
yep, and my the time where like I almost like deleted everything. The reason I did was because somebody like I was like full leaning on somebody, and they were like, nope, and so and so I just completely collapsed. Um, do you remember do you remember my sort of like proposed solution to it?
I think I you talked about it like almost like crowd surfing, like
Yeah,
rely on the people that are there and let those ones boost you up in the moment.
yeah. And I from what we've talked about in the past, I know that one of the issues that might come up for you with that is that a lot of the time the people that are there you don't connect with as deeply.
Yeah, like so many of the people that are in my stream, like sure I like that they're there, but they're like more than 10 years younger than me and into very different things. Like they'll talk about Minecraft, which I don't like, or talk about like some movie that I don't watch or something, and it's like these are not the people I'd be hanging out with if
Mm-hmm.
I had the choice to
Right.
do.
And so I'm curious when you when people come in and start talking about like Minecraft or whatever, do you like indulge them? Do you like actively engage
I
with them?
I do like I try to I always like think I should try to keep everyone, and I'm starting to realize it's not the greatest idea. But I like ask questions. I pretend to be interested. I try to be like everyone's friend, and it was super exhausting.
So yeah, I think that you're right on the money. Interestingly enough, I think that this is the same. It feels different, but I think it's actually exactly the same as when people like keep toxic people around in their community, or like when people sort of like tolerate trolls because they like don't want to lose the viewer. I think it's the exact same phenomenon because basically as the as like the content creator, my father-in-law and I had a discussion about how essentially what we're selling is like space. Like we're creating a space that people can come and exist in. And what makes one space more like profitable than another is like how good of a space it is. So like if it's, you know, a rundown place in the ghetto, not as many people are going to want to hang out there as like some like, you know, very nice chateau and like some, you know, really whatever. Um and as the content creator, like, you are the one who's in charge of cultivating and maintaining that space. And so when you like indulge people that like you don't really connect with, or when you indulge trolls that are toxic, ultimately two things happen. Well, three things, probably more, but lots of things happen. One is that you're unhappy because it's not the kind of space that you want to exist in. Two, more of those people are like, oh, this person indulges me. I'll bring my friends, and more of their friends come in, and so more of that space develops. And then three, the people that you do want around and the kind of space that you do want to have diminishes because they're like, oh, like this person isn't maintaining the kind of space that I want, so I'll dip. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, this is exactly what we talked about in my last Healthy Gamer session.
Oh. Okay,
and
I'm so glad you brought it up because I'm so curious about it, but I didn't want to, like...
yeah, right. Like, I don't know, we talked about like different things pretty much every session, but last session was almost entirely focused on streaming, and the thing I kept coming back to was like, I'm afraid if I don't indulge these people, then I'll have no one. Like, I'm not completely convinced that like the good people are being driven away. It's like either they don't have enough time or they're not feeling up to socializing, or like it feels like sometimes if I don't want to talk to these people about these things, like everyone will leave, or like maybe it'll just be lurkers, or I don't know, something like that.
I think I need to write this down before I
Okay.
express it to you, so I can sort of like gather all the different pieces. Hold on one second.
That's okay.
Um, okay. All right. I found a good like starting place.
Okay.
What was your experience like of our talk on your stream?
It was still might have been my favorite stream I did this year. Um, like I was
That's
talking
so
about something
flattering.
that I wanted to talk about, and like usually I hate doing co-streams. Usually I hate having someone on mic. So that's also, I guess, pretty flattering.
You're really stroking my ego here.
Right. But I was like, for the first time, talking about what I wanted to talk about, and having enough people like respond positively to what I was talking about. Whereas normally when I try to bring up a subject like that, I don't hear anything. Like, it is radio silence.
So I have a theory, but I'm curious, like, what do you think? Do do you have any ideas on like what the difference could be? Like why there was a difference?
Let's see. I did, for one thing, I wasn't playing a game. I did advertise it like beforehand, and I don't normally do that for streams besides posting my schedule.
Okay.
But I don't know if that mattered at all because people don't usually listen to advertising.
Okay, so here's my theory. And my theory is that in my experience of your streams, because I admit that I lurk a little bit. I'm a little bit of a lurker. In my experience of your streams, I do notice your indulgence. Like, I notice that a lot of the time on your stream, it is totally other focused, which I think is actually usually a good thing. Like, usually I feel like I would be like sort of pushing people more toward being other focused. But in your case, I think that what made a big difference in that stream is that like I sort of made it about you. Like even though we were supposed to be talking about self-esteem in sort of a general sense, I was like, no, no, no. I'm gonna have a therapy session with Brownie right now. Um, and so and I noticed the same exact thing that you did, which is that like your community like showed up for you. Like it was so touching seeing your community be like, oh my god, I love seeing Brownie like talk about this kind of stuff. And I think that the difference is that like they really got to feel you. And I think a lot of the time on your stream because you really want to make everyone happy, people don't get to experience you because you're like chameleoning. Does that make sense?
Right. Like I can sort of like be anything except myself.
Right. And I think that the paradox of all this is that what will really make people happy and what people really want is is actually you. And I think that the fact that our stream together was like the best stream that you've had all year is partial evidence of that.
Yeah. Okay. So I go back and forth on this because
Mm-hmm.
I know I have like little bits in stream where I talk about myself sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and I notice that like nobody says anything. But then when I make it like entirely about myself, suddenly people are like, "Oh, I'm here for this."
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird. Um, like I
Was
had a
that
similar stream on Tuesday night after my coaching session.
okay?
It's been an interesting week because it's been my 30th anniversary streaming happened yesterday, so I made the whole week
Congratulations.
about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Um, so normally I was like, oh, we're gonna party, and then Tuesday night I was like, you know what? I don't really feel like living it up and like being all happy and stuff. Let me talk about burnout and like what I just discussed with the coach.
Yeah.
And I could only talk about it for like the first hour and a half, but that was a really cool hour and a half to see people like validating what I said.
Totally. And so like just from sort of a logical standpoint, I don't know, like a coding standpoint, if if you only talk about yourself a little and you don't get a lot of response, but you talk about yourself a lot and you get a lot of response, what does that suggest?
Uh, I don't know. It's weird. Like I don't like to think that I should do that more, but it seems like that's a good thing. I don't know if I that the problem is like I've done that very little. It's like been that stream and the stream you did
Yeah,
with me, and if I did that all the time, I'm worried like I would bore people because I'm not really an interesting person or have much of a life outside of streaming.
so that here's where I'm going to push back against you. I think that that's the problem, is that you think that in offering yourself it's boring. And what I think is that you as a person actually have a tremendous amount of value to give and insight to give. Dude, like you like worked at Google, you heckin' all the I can't even remember what you said at the beginning of this conversation because it sounded so fancy and adult and like cool and big money making. Like I can't even remember what it was, but like you've done so many like really cool valuable things. I think that you have an incredible amount to offer your audience, and I think that that is really what content creation is all about. It's about like showing yourself to your audience, and like your audience gains value from that. Like because that is ultimately the space that you're creating. The space that you're creating is like you're sort of like opening up and letting everyone like see inside, and like some people are like, oh, that seems really cool, I want to come in.
I like to believe that. Like, well, okay, so I do look at all the big furry streamers, and I notice that very few of them do the thing that I do,
Which is what?
um, which is like cater to other people.
Yeah.
It's very much like I am this iconic, like a lot of them are VTubers, obviously. Like they're
Yep.
like, I am this brand, I am this like character,
Yep.
and people like me for me and hear what I have to say about things.
Yep.
And I almost don't like it a lot of the time because I like to come in the streams and like talk about stuff,
Yeah.
but a lot of other people like it.
What don't you like about it when you go into other people's streams?
I feel like everybody just like all happy and stuff, or at least they pretend to be, and like jokey
Mm.
and having fun, and it's like the Twitter thing. Like I see people having a good time, and I'm like, I can't feel that.
Yeah, yeah. So I do think that there, like, that might be a symptom of uh I can't remember the right word. Like sample bias. Like the particular types of content creators that you're watching are all sort of like, sunshine and rainbows and like don't want any sort of like depth in their like in their content creation. But I think that
Yeah,
there are a lot of content creators that like are showing their true selves and like go like really deep and like get into like deep stuff on stream, like a lot of like mental health content creators and things like that.
I have
um
trouble finding them a lot of the time, actually.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think that it is definitely a new, like an emerging niche. I don't think that it is because mental health in itself is an emerging niche, like for a long time, and still in a lot of ways, like we don't really care about mental health. We really only care about physical health. So I totally get why it'd be hard to find them, but they're out there. There are streamers that really want you to bring your authentic self to the table, and like I talk about this on my stream all the time, that like I don't care if you don't come to my stream. What really bothers me is if you don't come to my stream because like you don't want to bring the mood down. That pisses me off because
Oh
I'm like,
yeah,
no, dude, like bring your authentic experience here. Otherwise, this isn't an actual community. It's just some fake plastic like toy on a shelf. Like I can't stand it. It's terrible.
I've literally heard that from people. Like I asked them how they're doing, and they're like, "Oh, if I really say how I am, like, the stream will be ruined, so I shouldn't do that." And I'm like, no, that's what I want to hear. That's
Exactly.
way better than hearing that someone's just good and that's it.
And Brownie, this is exactly why you need to be your authentic self on stream, because we need more people like you. We need more people that actually want that and that are bringing their like authentic experience to stream, rather than bring this like chameleon, like try one size fits all but doesn't actually fit anyone mentality. We need people exactly like you. What you want is exactly what the world needs. Like that is to use the Sanskrit word, like that's your dharma right there. Like you got, oh, it's
I
so
hope so.
it is. I know it. I'm so confident. Tell okay, all right. I'm gonna stop like railing you for a second and just ask you about, because I'm super curious. Ask you about your coaching experience, because when we talked on Discord, you said like it's not going that great. It's like one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't feel like. I think my main problem with it is that not much carries over between sessions. Like we'll talk about one thing and I'll say, "Oh, we'll do this assignment and we'll expand on this more later," and then we like end up talking about a completely different thing the next session.
I see.
So it feels all like isolated and stuff.
So like it's like instead of being like a story driven show, it's just like episodic. It's like one episode after another.
Yeah.
Have you brought
Right.
that up with your coach? Have you like said like it feels like we're not
I
there's no
haven't,
like
but I
continuity?
probably should. There hasn't been like much room to get that feedback, it seems.
For sure. Yeah, one of the things that I have learned about therapy, like I've been in therapy for a long time. How long have I been in therapy? Oh my god. I've been in therapy for a long time. I think like 10 years. Oh my god. Anyway, I've been in therapy for a long time, and one of the things that I've really learned about therapy is that while therapists are very good at like, deducing things out, or like coaching therapy, whatever. Deducing things out, like they are not mind readers. And so like you got to let them know, because those dynamics that come up in the room, not only are they really helpful in the room, but they usually reflect things outside of the room. I'm trying to remember the technical word for it, and I'm failing, and I'm not going to remember it, but it's a really cool concept that basically you will play out, I think it's displacement. You will play out dynamics in your regular relationships in the room with your therapist. And good therapists or good coaches will acknowledge those dynamics and work through them with you. And then it helps you work through them in real life. And so, but if you never bring it up, then the coach or the therapist doesn't know to help you with that. So like anytime, and I mean this goes for like us talking right now too. Absolutely, Brownie. Like if something comes up that you're experiencing that like doesn't feel good, or that like there's some grind or something, bring it up, because it will help tremendously. Even if it doesn't feel like there's room, like you're heckin' paying for these sessions. Like make room. Like say, stop talking. I want to talk about how these feel super episodic to me and not I can't, story driven. I don't know what the right word. Narrative.
Yeah, I guess I've been kind of trained not to, because like I had a therapist that was really bad and like would talk about himself a lot. Mm-hmm. And like every time I brought something up, he's just like, "Oh, that's because you're not trying hard enough." I'm like, "Really? Seriously?"
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
Sounds like a total discountment of your feelings.
Right.
And
like I kept telling him, because he's just talking at me a lot. But like I wanted him to listen to me more. He's like, "Oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I know what to talk about."
Unfortunately, there's some careers that it's way worse to that like the inevitable, like people are going to be bad at their job is like way more damning, and I think that therapy is definitely one of them. If you have a bad therapist, it's
gone through the ringer.
Yeah.
It's like I don't even know what a good therapist is like anymore, because I don't know how to handle them, or even if I can get anything from therapy.
I think from what you're saying, and from just like the little bit of work that you and I have done, I think that you can get a lot from therapy, dude. I think that you have gotten a lot from therapy. I think that it's just that like, because you're walking around as half of a person, you're like, ow, I still fucking hurt a lot. So it doesn't feel like anything is being done, but I think more is happening than you think.
Maybe. It just seems like even the therapist now, like I'm hearing things that I heard 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I should probably stop her, like, but I'm just tired of hearing that, like, I need to believe I can get better in order to get better, for example.
Why don't you believe that you can get better?
Because I've had many, many years of trying things and they've all failed. And I know why they fail.
Why did they fail?
Because my brain just doesn't stay interested in things or trust anybody.
And what is your brain staying interested in things having to do with you getting better?
Well, I need to like keep an interest to have a job, first of all. And I need to keep an interest in a person to have like a friendship or a relationship. Or keep a common interest to like keep the friendship going.
And are those is that what getting better looks like?
I think so, but it seems like it just involves being someone that's not me.
Because to me, those sound like symptoms. You know, like if I have a cold, I might cough, or I might have a sore throat. But like that's not the cold. Those are just symptoms of the cold. The cold is like some like bacteria, I don't know the science, but you know, whatever it is inside of me that it's actually causing those things to happen. So like similarly, the things that you just described, like having a job or like, you know, keeping a friendship or a romantic relationship, like those things all sound like symptoms. The root of the issue sounds to me, and I mean, you tell me what your experience is like, but it sounds to me like the root of the issue is that you're walking around as half of a forking person. That's awful and painful and terrible.
Right. I guess I never thought of it that way completely. but it kind of is. And I don't know how to be full again because it seems
Yeah.
like I have to forget a bunch of stuff to be like that.
What do you have to forget?
That what being in love was like.
Hmm. I wouldn't want to forget that.
I like to think that all my memories make who I am, but
Yeah.
I feel like I'd be better off if that didn't happen. Like just today, I had like a dream about high school, and I realized how much I missed that.
Yeah. Sort of a simpler time.
Right, like I was top of the class, I was the best trumpet player, I had interests, I had hope, I had things that I could do.
Hmm. And now you don't feel like you have any of those.
Nope.
Yeah. That sounds really, really tough.
Hmm.
So do you like if you could flip a switch and forget the relationship ever happened, would you do it?
That's a tough one. It's hard to say because I don't know where I'd be if I didn't remember that. Like, what would have filled my life instead? Like, I don't
Like
know if I would have.
what if like your circumstances don't change at all, but you can just flip a switch and like forget the relationship. Like you said you're living with your parents right now, right?
Yeah.
So you're like still living with your parents as you are now, but like you just like flip a switch, you go to bed, you wake up the next morning, and you don't remember anything about that relationship.
I guess things wouldn't be any better off. They might be a little bit better, but I would inevitably get in a relationship, probably a long distance one, that I barely cared for, and have the same thing happen.
Hmm. That's actually not even where I was going, but I guess that's a good point. My original thought process was just that like I don't know, man, like even if I even if me and Birdie like got divorced, um I I would never ever want to like erase those memories out of my life. Like they've they like you said, like they've made me who I am. Uh and just forgetting all of that would be, I mean, obviously I wouldn't remember, so it wouldn't be incredibly painful, but like I don't want I would rather suffer the pain. You know what I mean? And
Right.
like similarly, like my the friendship that I had, where like I was leaning on the person, then like they dipped, and like it's what made me almost quit streaming. Like I would never want to forget that. Like that person still to this day is like that relationship meant a lot to me. It was incredibly precious to me. What do you think about that?
Hmm. I don't know. Like, I don't think my relationship left anything lasting good on me. Like, anytime I think back to like the good times we had, it's just sad now because it's like, oh, well, that will never happen again. I mean, sure, maybe I learned some things that I like, but it's like I learned things that I like that are dangling in front of me, and like, no matter how hard I try to catch up, I'll never have it.
I'm gonna push back a little bit, and you tell me if I think if you think I'm wrong. Okay. I think that the only reason you that you could be sad about something is if it means a great deal to you. So like for instance, if somebody who I don't know says, "Bye, I'll never see you again." I don't know them. I don't care. But if somebody that I have known my entire life and I care super deeply about says, "Bye, I'll never see you again," I'm going to be really sad that they're not there anymore. And like looking back on those memories, yeah, like I'm going to be sad that I don't get to experience that with them anymore. But at the same time, I think I need to explain a concept. Is it okay if I get a little esoteric?
Sure.
Okay. One of the really cool concepts that I've learned recently is that uh, there's an axis. Tell me if I'm using the right words because you're smarter than me. There's an axis between happiness and sadness and contentment and what's the word I'm looking, and suffering. And so what I mean by that is like I can be sad but be content, and I can be happy but ultimately be suffering. Does that make sense?
Um.
Do
Not
you want me to give you?
exactly. It's like
Okay.
I don't know. I wasn't gonna put the word suffering in there when you were thinking of something. I was thinking more like wanting or desire.
No, I think suffering is definitely the word.
Because suffering seems like the opposite of happy to me.
Yeah. So let me give you an example. Uh, the friendship that I had, I am sad that it is gone, but I am very content that it happened. Like I I I don't have any sort of like internal like I wish I could go back and change this or anything like that. I'm very content that it happened, and I wouldn't want it any other way, even though I'm sad that it's over. Um, or like another example is like there was a doctor, and he lost a patient who was really young patient, but to this day, both him and his and the patient's family are content that he was this guy's doctor. Even though the guy died, even though the doctor wasn't able to save him, like he's content that even though it was a sad thing that happened, that he was the one that was there for them. And so similarly, in your relationship, like yeah, of course you're going to be sad that those things aren't there anymore. But I think that just goes to speak more for how important they were. And I think that, and again, like this is a hypothesis, so feel free to like push back against me. But like I think that one day you you'll get to a place where you can look back at that time and be sad that it's over, but that you'll be very content that it happened.
That's possible. I mean, if I get to a place in my life where I'm better than I was when that happened, then yeah, I can see that being a thing. But so far, I haven't gotten back up to that high before.
Hmm. There's something juicy in there, and I'm trying to suss out what it is. You said I can see that happening if I get to like better than where I was then.
Yeah, because I know now the situation is better in like it's better off that ended anyways.
So can you help me understand a little bit more about like what you mean by what like if I'm better than I was then?
Yeah, I mean, if my general satisfaction with life is higher and I feel like I'm getting more out of what I do and what I have.
What defines that for you?
Um, it's tough to say.
Yeah.
Um, Probably just all brain chemistry.
Okay, that's a very scientific answer. Anything more practical?
Uh, um, I don't know because like like good things could happen nowadays, and I still would disqualify them. Like
Yeah,
better things than that.
I think so too. What makes that happen?
Um, I don't want to say brain chemistry because we already discussed it's a difficult thing, but it's what I'm going for.
So, what has changed about your brain chemistry?
Um, my focus is shot. Um, what else? Um,
Do you think that anything in do, do you think that something I understand like the result again like the symptoms of the changes in your brain chemistry, but like do you have any ideas as to what caused the change in your brain chemistry?
um, Probably the breakups.
Okay.
I don't know. It could have also just like naturally happened anyways, but that's not likely because my family doesn't really have a history of depression.
Hmm. Interesting. So yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna keep circling back around to this as we go through the discussion, just to see like if we can find any like additional nuggets as we work through it. But like, um, I think that you're right. I think that the breakup is what altered your brain chemistry, or like the way that I've been describing it is the breakup is what caused you to be walking around as half of a hecking person. And I just want to ask again, like, is there are there things that make you feel like you're regenerating?
Say regenerating.
What?
I think your last word cut off.
Oh, regenerating.
Okay. Um, Not really. It's kind of like something just got killed off and it's not coming back.
So when you play board games or when you have those special streams, does it feel like anything I know that it's not, you know, like a full regeneration. I know that you're not coming back to your full self. But does it feel like any part of you is like maybe a toe is like shifting back into place maybe?
Um, Feels kind of like a distraction. Like I know I'm gonna log off and everything's gonna be the same, or I'm gonna stop playing and everything's gonna be the same. But for a while, my brain is like engaged in this alternate universe where things are simpler. All I have to do is figure out this puzzle or figure out what to say to people. And then,
Hmm.
I mean, real life can seep into that, sure. But when I turn that off, it's back to the way things were.
Hmm. That's interesting. Cuz now I'm thinking about what's the difference between a distraction and a passion.
Right. For a while, I thought, like, and I still kind of think this, it's like the best I can do is to distract myself.
Mhm.
And that's it.
So was your significant other a distraction?
Definitely not.
Why not?
Um, because he kind of was life. Um, like it wasn't like he was like helping me escape from life. He was just like the constant thing. Like there was no turning off of having him.
Yeah. All right. I think I have to go hippy dippy here. I've been trying to avoid hippy dippy because I feel like your coding mind is just gonna be like BS, but I think I gotta go hippy dippy because I think it's important. Um, Again, I brought this up in the last Tentacle Tantra with Cuddle, but before you before you found a love for board games, were you still Brownie?
Yeah,
Okay, and
I
before
think. Well,
you go ahead.
that's complicated actually because like who am I? And
Right.
then
I mean, that really is the
like,
root of that's where I'm going. You skipped steps, which is great.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, I
that
was Brownie like for a while, but like, am I was a year ago Brownie or was now Brownie? I don't know.
right, right. So, do you feel like there is a constant you, some sort of constant you?
Not really. Um, Actually, I mean, now it feels like some things are pretty constant as far as I've been depressed.
Yeah, yeah. What about before your relationship?
I was a completely different person. Like even the Myers-Briggs personality tests, I've taken them like over the years and it's always been different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, but okay, but like scientifically, you're not a different person, right? You're still the same Brownie.
Uh, I don't know, because like different experiences happen and suddenly my brain is thinking about different things all the time.
Yeah.
And I think if you talk to me, um, let's say like 8 years ago, you'd get completely different answers than if you talk to me now.
Okay. So I think that we're running into a really cool uh, and revealing thing, which is that are you, Brownie, your thoughts, experiences, and feelings?
Um, that's a good tough question.
Yeah.
I like to say they make up that, but feelings can happen independent of those two.
Hmm. So okay, so let me try asking: Are you your thoughts and experiences?
There's a physical self too, but I'd say as far as like the mind goes, then yeah.
And so who is thinking those thoughts?
Uh, I don't know. I like to say it's me, but they're just kind of happening without my
Yeah.
control.
Who is me?
A bunch of neurons and transmitters.
Is that it?
Could be, maybe.
I'm playing a very careful game of chess in my brain. Um okay. So here's where I think the biggest problem lies. Like the I think that it starts with the you being half of a person, but then like in terms of that person actually regenerating, I think that this is why you can't regenerate. I think that the way that consciousness works is that there is sort of like a watcher. Okay, there's a person who like is you and sees and like who is observing all of the like thoughts and feelings and experiences that happen. Okay, and then there's the mind, which has all of those thoughts and feelings and experiences, and then there's the outside world. And what happens when that watcher gets when it focuses in is it sort of like goes inside of that thing. So like when people say like I just got like so caught up in my anger, like it's the idea that like their consciousness is sinking so deeply into that one thought, feeling, emotion, whatever, that like that's all they are anymore. Like they are just anger or whatever. And I think that right now, that's how you live. Like that's all there is. You are that like cake that I was talking about, like those layers of thoughts. That's all there is. It's like all consuming for you. And so, go ahead.
Oh, I'm trying to understand it. So you're saying like the watcher is kind of like melded into the thoughts that are happening?
Yes. Get sort of like sucked in. I can. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And like it kind of reminds me of what people talk about with meditating and mindfulness, which is like observe your thoughts but distance them from yourself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I've done that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I've practiced it, but it always like falls apart.
What falls apart? What happens?
Um like I find situations that I just can't be mindful in because they're so boring to me that I just like I'm just gonna fall back and like pull my brains what's going through my head and like focus on that and become that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we all do that. Like, and unless you're talking with someone who's enlightened, I think that every single person does that, and like that's totally okay. I think that the trap that a lot of people fall into with like mindfulness and meditation, things like that, is they think like, oh, I keep getting distracted, or like I keep, getting caught up in my thoughts and things, and so I'm not good at this. And so I'm not going to do it because I'm not good at it. But in reality, every time you pull back, every time you sort of like, oh, like I got caught up in my thoughts again, and you pull back a little bit, you're actually doing sort of like a mental push up. And so you're actually like getting stronger in doing that. It's sort of like an anime, right? Like Demon Slayer is a great example. The like breathing that he does. Have you watched Demon Slayer?
Yeah,
Okay, I
I
assume.
have. It's great.
It's so good. Okay, so the breathing that he does, where it's like it's constantly breathing, basically what they're talking about, like they're not telling you this, but basically what they're talking about is like finding enlightenment. And so like the what are they called? The like the master swordsmen,
The Hashira.
the Hashira are like enlightened people. That's what they are because they're constantly in that state of breathing. Um, and that state of breathing is basically constantly in the state of like detachment, constantly in the state of like sitting and watching their thoughts. um so yeah, dude, like, yes, you are absolutely going to get caught up in your thoughts, and everybody does, and that's good because it's making you stronger. I know now. Okay, I want to be careful here because I know that you had a therapist that you worked with that like worked with you on some meditation, and it was a really bad experience for you, and so I want to make sure that I don't fall into that same sort of trap. So talk to me about your thoughts, like what's coming up for you.
You mean just the thoughts that I'm coming up right now in the situation?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Well, part of me is like, oh, well, you can't do this. I mean, and part of me thinking like, oh, what am I if not my thoughts? Like, what? I mean, it seems like they define me, but if I don't let them define me, then I'm just nothing
Yeah. So
or something like
Brownie,
that.
I want you to take a second. What are you doing right now?
Um, I'm moving my fingers around a lot.
No, 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 no. I
I'm definitely
mean,
doing
like
that.
in your head. What are you doing right now?
Um, I don't know. Like, I want to say thinking, but that's too simple. Um,
You're like, just from a sort of definitive standpoint, you are observing your thoughts right now. Do you see that?
oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that practice of just observing your thoughts and just sort of like watching them go through, that's what I'm talking about. And that guy, whoever that thing fella is that is observing the thoughts, that's the watcher that we're talking about. And that's the real you. When I ask like, who are you, that's him. That
Mm,
whether you get a haircut, whether you've gone through a terrible breakup, whether you are walking around as half of a person or a whole person, that thing is constant, and it's what is Brownie, whatever that is, the essence of Brownie.
Right. But then it's like, what if it's just a watcher? Doesn't that mean like everyone's the same? Like, what makes the watchers different?
Very good. Yes, that's exactly right. And that's a big part of of what enlightenment is you realize that everyone is like we are all, I'm this is getting more and more hippy dippy. You forgive me, Brownie, but like we are all connected, right? And like it is all sort of like one massive consciousness. So like, yeah, we're all sort of pieces of a whole. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I've always heard people say that. Like, always people heard people talk about like when you get enlightened, you realize everyone's connected or everything's connected.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I like always had trouble believing that.
Of course.
But
Me
I mean,
too.
arriving at the conclusion like everyone's the same is kind of weird.
Yeah. Totally. I agree. It is weird. It's super weird. And the reason that it is so weird is because we've never seen it or experienced it. Like imagine going back in time to whatever time, like let's say some ancient time. So let's say like when Jesus was born or something. And telling people and like telling people about smartphones. Like they'd be like, dude, what are you talking about? Like that there's no way that exists. That's crazy. You know? And so like similarly, like the reason that this concept seems so crazy is because we are so constantly caught up in our thoughts that like like what is right outside seems completely, it seems like another universe. It doesn't even seem possible. But when you think about it logically, which is strange that you can actually logic your way into it. But when you think about it logically, you're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." Because I can't define myself by anything other than that. Everything other than that is like I can only define myself by the fact that I'm experiencing something. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, kind of. Like, I can define myself as like how I react when I do this, or like how I react when I do this. But
Not even how you
without those
react,
things,
just how you experience it. Do you
right?
get the difference?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I know that this is really hippy dippy, and I don't know if it's actually going to do anything for you, and I worry about that. But I really think that the more that you can detach yourself from your thoughts a little bit, the more you can practice detaching yourself from your thoughts, the more you're going to be able to observe the regeneration that I think is actually already happening. But I think that the problem is that right now you're so absorbed in your thoughts that one, you're not able to see the regeneration that is happening, and two, it's slowing the regenerative process because your mind is actively fighting against it.
Right. I could see that. I mean, I really wish I could see what you're talking about, but I know that'll take time, and even with time, maybe I won't see it.
I think that one thing that I can sort of point to that may give you some like just some things that I'm seeing that I think point to the fact that you're like on a good path is that you reached out for help to like you went and got a coach at Healthy Gamer. I think that's a really big step. And also that you reached out in my Discord for help when you were struggling with burnout. Because I think that if you were in the same sort of hopeless state that you were before, you wouldn't even reach out. You know, you would just suffer in silence and sort of like slowly disappear.
Sometimes. Well, okay, so like now what I do when I'm feeling bad is I just like say stuff on my vent Twitter, which is screaming in the void to no one in particular except like the 30 people that follow it. And I don't even know if they'll see it because Twitter's algorithm kind of sucks.
I love that you have a vent Twitter. That's awesome.
Right. But it's not like, it's probably not a good thing. Like I should be just talking to people individually.
Well, I don't know. I mean, sure, like, you know, reach out to people individually, but I think that one of the most important things is that when you are feeling depressed or anxious or whatever, not isolating is one of the best things that you can do. Because like depression and anxiety have this like vicious circle that they implement where they're like, oh, you're depressed and anxious, you should be all by yourself. And then when you're all by yourself, they like come out like all big and scary and make it even worse. And so then you get more depressed and anxious. And so then you stay alone more. And then like it's just this vicious circle. And so if you can surround yourself with people, all of a sudden, even though like you might feel really uncomfortable and everything, all of a sudden like that stuff can't like, you know, take you over. There it is again. You can't get caught up in it because other people are sort of pulling you back. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Like I felt this like 2019. I decided, well, I had really bad experiences in my local furry group. So I decided I wasn't going to like hang out with people anymore. I was just going to stay in my, oh yeah, and I also had really bad roommates that like were abusive and everything.
Oh no.
And then the guy that I was dating just stopped dating me. And I was like, well, I saw these people and I'm only worse off for it. So clearly I shouldn't be seeing people anymore. And I pretty much like for months and months and months didn't talk to anybody except for streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And
What happened?
by the end of that year, like I underwent TMS, which is like a magnetic brain stimulation thing. And like it helped for like a few weeks. And then I was just really in the dumps.
And so like I'm gonna interpret what you said a little bit. Tell me if it's right. It sounds like that isolation got you in like one of the worst places that you've ever been in.
Yeah. I got admitted to the hospital like the beginning of the year after. And then it kind of sucks that 2020 happened because
Yeah,
I was like, oh, I guess I should stop isolating. And then, oops, COVID.
totally. Yeah, that's really unfortunate. That's really bad timing. You were like, I'm gonna
Right.
come out of my isolation, and COVID was like, no, you're not. Stay
Exactly.
inside.
Well, okay, so I did go to a furry convention the literal week before lockdown happened. And then that got very fond memories. It's like the last time I got to do anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad that you're able to get back out again. I think that too is going to help a lot with the regenerative process.
Hopefully. Part of me still worries that the same thing will happen as what happened with the local furry group, where I didn't get to know anyone very well and like felt distant from everyone. And then I vented in the group and then people just hated me for it. And then I left.
I'm sorry that happened to you. I know that experience. It sucks a lot.
Right. You definitely learn things. Like not everyone's receptive to that. And you got to find the few people that are.
Right. Yeah. You got to sort of cultivate the right group of people, which is exactly what you're doing with your stream.
Right. And I don't even know if it's going to work, but let's try it.
I have so much faith. I'm so hopeful for multiple reasons. One, just because like Brownie, I think that one, you're a brilliant guy. I think that two, like I have so much hope for you. Like I just see like such a cool guy who like, you know, went through some really rough stuff and like is having a hard time healing from it, but like I just think that you have such an amazing amount to offer that I think that you're gonna blow it out of the park. Um, one thing that I wanted to throw out, and please tell me if my harping gets annoying, but one thing that I want to throw out is, you know how people always say that like cheesy thing about like live in the present, man. Like don't focus on the future or the past. Just live in the moment.
Right, right.
That too is this same concept of like not getting caught up in your thoughts. So like one of the things that I keep noticing as we like have this conversation is that like you'll feel hopeful about something and then you'll sort of qualify it with like, but I'm afraid that this same thing is going to happen. So like you're actually doing both. Like you're saying like this thing that has happened in the past I'm afraid is going to happen in the future. And so what I would encourage is like try to just take one step at a time. You know what I mean? Try not to like play a game of chess, but instead just play a game of checkers. You know, just play just one hop at a time and see what happens. You know what I mean?
Right. I know why I'm doing it. I know I'm doing it. I'm trying to
That's
stop
good.
the hurt before it happens
Yeah.
because I think it's inevitably going to be happen. And so if I just cut myself off from the situation really quickly, then it won't happen.
And you will also never regenerate.
Right. But yeah, at the same time, it's like, and trying to regenerate, like by reaching out to the local furry group, I was trying to regenerate
Yeah.
for sure as like, oh, I discovered this new side of myself and I'm gonna see what I can make of it and hopefully find some friends, maybe find someone to date.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, now I'm even worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that is the same concept as like going to different therapists and like having you know running into a bunch of bad therapists and until you find a good one. Like yeah, it sucks finding bad therapists, but that's the game that you got to play in order to regenerate.
Right. Like a lot of it hinges on my belief that like something is there, but it's like maybe I don't have to believe that something is there in order to do it.
Tell me more about that. You believe that what is there?
Like I like a lot of the reason I act the way I do is because I don't believe if I keep trying things that something is going to work out.
Hmm.
But maybe I just like avoid the concept of the belief altogether and
I
just
think
do
that's
things.
I think that's brilliant, dude. Yes, absolutely. So like there's this concept of like falling behind that I think lends itself very well to you, which is that this feeling of like falling behind, what tends to happen is that when people are just like slacking off and like not doing anything in their life, they don't feel behind. But as soon as they start doing something and trying to like catch up, all of a sudden they feel super behind. And the more progress they make, the more behind they feel. And the reason why is because like if you're sitting at the bottom of Mount Everest and you have like no intention of climbing Mount Everest, you don't care. You don't care that there's a huge heckin' mountain in front of you. But all of a sudden, if you know, get out your rock climbing equipment and like strap in and start making your way up Mount Everest, all of a sudden, every step you take, you're like, oh my God, there's so much Mount Everest left. You know what I mean? And so when you start this healing process, every step you take in this healing process, you're like, oh my God, I'm half of a person. How am I ever going to get to be a full person? But you can't focus on that because you'll never get there. You just got to focus on like, oh look, the tip of my finger came back. Or like maybe it's not even a tip of a finger, like, oh look, it's an atom. You know, like, oh look, I played a board game and an atom came back. This is great. Look at this atom. And before you know it, the other half of your body's back.
Right. I hope I can see that eventually.
I think that you're still doing it in what you just said. Does that make sense? Do you see that?
Sort of. Like I kind of disqualified it or like didn't believe that it's going to happen.
I mean, like you can totally believe that it's not going to happen. Just like you said I hope that I can see that eventually, which is still like your mind is getting caught, yourself is getting like sucked into the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
So like try like for instance, I think a great example is like make a video of yourself playing the trumpet and post it. And like don't think about how many views it's going to get, or don't think about like that people aren't going to like it or any of that. Just for me, make a video of you playing the trumpet and post it on YouTube and send me the link so that I can rave
Okay.
about it because I really want to hear you play the trumpet. Or you can
I
even
can
do you have your trumpet?
uh it's somewhere under my bed and I
Okay.
haven't played it in forever, so it'd probably sound awful.
All right. Well, even if it's terrible, you can even post it privately. But I want you to make a video of yourself playing the trumpet and send it to me. I don't even care if it's terrible. I want to hear it.
All right.
Deal?
I can manage that.
Okay, cool. Cool. I'm excited. Um so, I want to check in and see sort of like where you're at, how you're feeling. Do you have any like big questions or reflections or anything like that?
Uh I don't know if I do. I think I just had to process all this for a second.
For sure. What is this? And if you can't answer this right now, it's totally okay. But what has this experience been like for you?
It's been good. I feel like I've been kind of taken out of the funk I was in and like allowed to take a step back and like observe
That's
what's
awesome.
going on in a non-biased way.
You're not chameleoning me, are you?
I hope not. I don't
Okay.
even know what it's like to not chameleon anymore. Like I tried doing it yesterday on stream and I'm just like, oh no, it's happening again. What do I do?
That's really good, dude. Like so here's the thing. Taking the step back is like seems really hard. And I think that maybe an easier step is just to notice it. Like you don't have to take a step back. You don't have to like be the observer. You don't have to be enlightened because no one's. I mean, there are enlightened people, but no one's enlightened. It's really hard. It's really difficult. But if you can just like catch yourself and like point it out when it happens, like so if you catch yourself like qualifying your statements with like, but it's probably never gonna happen or whatever. Like if you can just start to notice that stuff, I think that it'll make a really big difference because one of the like again to like sort of bring in science to this, one of the things that scientists have discovered is that simply the act of observation changes things. So like when they observe like animals in nature, they have to like work really hard to like be as discreet as possible because they know that if the animals are aware that they are being observed, it's going to change the behavior of the animals. And so they won't get like accurate data. And so similarly, that can work in our favor because it means that in order to like make big changes in your life, you don't even necessarily have to do anything. You just have to start noticing things, just catching yourself in little tiny ways. So like a perfect example is like, oh, I I just like qualified one of my statements, or like, oh, I just I noticed that I'm caught up in my thinking right now. And just
Yeah.
start with that and see how that goes. See what that does for you.
Yeah. Part of me is like, what do I do now? I notice, but I guess I don't worry about that yet.
Wait, say that again.
Part of me says, what do I do when I notice? But then I don't. I guess I don't worry about that yet.
Right. Just notice. Because like I said, just the noticing is going to bring about change. And so what's cool is you don't have to do anything. You know? I know that it's tempting to want to do something, but you don't have to. You can just notice, and it's going to start bringing about change.
Yeah.
Okay, I went on another tangent. I want you to have like a chance to finish. You feel like you're sitting in. You feel like you got like sort of detached from your funk. Tell me more.
Um. Yeah. I think it's weird because like most therapy sessions, I'm like in a funk, and then I explain why I'm in a funk, and then I'm even worse because like, oh, we don't have a solution for that funk. Um. But I don't think we are focused on solutions. We're focused on understanding what's going on.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like I'm taking myself out of the situation a little bit.
yeah. And one of the big things that I think can be really helpful in therapy sessions, and I don't know if your coach, if you've noticed your coach doing this, but like I did this at the beginning of this talk, is like admitting that I don't have a solution, and just being like, let's heckin' work through it together, instead of me being some wise shaman that gives you an answer that ultimately doesn't work and is disappointing.
Right. I think at some point I remember something that stuck with me. He said, "Let's give up on like the premise of being happy for now and like focus on something else," which was like almost sad to me, but at the same time, like it made more sense. That's too lofty of a goal at the moment.
Did it feel relieving?
Yeah, it felt like I didn't have to do like everything right now.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, I think that's a really awesome thing to say. Like, you don't have to be happy. What you can just you can be unhappy, and that's okay. As long as you
Right.
know, as long as you are aware of it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a super powerful thing to say to like help you not be upset that you're not reaching the goal, but like to still make some sort of progress.
Totally. Yeah. So I'm feeling good about where we're at, and like we're right at about the 2 hour mark. So I just want to make sure, like, anything else that like you want to dive a little bit more into or talk a little bit more about.
Um, I don't know if this is considered qualifying, but like I'm thinking about a whole being myself on stream thing or presenting myself. And
Yeah.
I know when I tried to do it on Tuesday, I ran out of things to talk about in like an hour and a half and then went back to being a chameleon. I'm wondering like I guess I probably get better at this with practice, but it's like if I'm not just being whatever other people want me to be, what do I choose to be?
It's a great question. I think, first of all, that I definitely can't give you an answer, because the answer is you be you.
Right. And I'm like, well, I know me, and me when I'm not streaming, I lay around all the time, like bored, not knowing what to do. And I don't think
Okay.
people want to see that.
Okay, but that being said, like, so when I say like be you on stream, it doesn't necessarily mean just like it doesn't necessarily mean like just chatting streams, right? Like you can play games on stream and things like that. But like here's my question, like the games that you play on stream, do you actually enjoy them?
I do,
Okay.
unless I
So
stumble upon a bad one. But
yeah,
I don't think I'd enjoy them if I wasn't streaming and playing them.
that's interesting. But okay,
Yeah.
let's delve into that a little bit more. So like if you hold on. What is it about playing and streaming them that makes you enjoy them?
It feels like I'm like using them to do something. Like I'm
Mm.
if I'm playing it off stream, I'm like, wow, this is something that I could be doing on stream and like actually getting something out of. And I've heard like other streamers say the same thing actually, so I think it's a pretty common problem.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I'm just thinking about sort of how to ask this question. Um, so when you play games off stream, you don't feel like you're getting anything out of the game.
Sort of. I feel like maybe it's like a feeling of not being productive. Like I'm not using this game to like do anything for anybody. Therefore, I shouldn't be doing this right now.
What about you?
Um, well, I guess for me, I had that focus problem where it's like, now that I know I can do this and do something else, I don't want to go back to how it was before.
But I mean, what about doing something for you?
It doesn't feel like I'm doing something for me for some reason. It feels like I'm making an attempt to do it, but then I don't enjoy it, so it
What
doesn't actually
does
work out.
what does doing something for you feel like?
Um, feels wrong. Feels self-indulgent. I don't know. Like the common example I'm thinking is just like buying myself like a meal that I enjoy, which feels good for like a little bit, and it's like, oh, well, I just ate that and it's done now. Like, what did I get out of that?
Yeah, dude. This is the juice. This is it. We're coming back to it again. So, um my brain is getting tired, I can tell. It's working slower. Um so the fact that doing something for you makes you feel uncomfortable and doesn't feel good is exactly why you need to start doing more things for you. Because growth and healing and regeneration are all about leaning into discomfort. Like healing is not pretty. You know, like when you get a cut and it heals up, like that's not a pretty process. It doesn't look good. But it's this like amazing regenerative process that your body is going through. And so like and it hurts, right? Like as you heal up, like it doesn't feel good. Bones mending back together doesn't feel good. But it's what you have to go through in order to heal. And so I think that like a really good like simple exercise that you can do for yourself is like this is almost like this could be your meditation, okay? Cuz like meditation doesn't have to be like sitting and breathing. Get a meal for yourself that you really enjoy eating, because that seems like the most sort of like concrete example that you gave me. And like eat the meal and enjoy the meal and then notice what happens. You can still have the thoughts, that's totally fine. You don't have to like not have the thoughts. Don't try to like suppress the thoughts or anything. Just notice what happens afterward and keep doing that. Do that like I don't know how well off you are. But like ideally, if you could eat a meal like a totally like self-indulgent meal like even 3 times a week, that'd be great. If not, like that's okay, like whatever you can do. But if you could do it like 3 times a week, that'd be awesome. And just like sit in that and notice like, oh, I feel like a self-indulgent ass right now. Oh, like that did absolutely nothing for society. Because there's a big difference between like um just as like another example, there's a big difference between like being overwhelmed and being like, woo, I'm really overwhelmed right now. Do you know what I mean?
Uh, sort of. I don't know if I completely understand the difference.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask a question. It may totally fall flat. Have you had? Were there times with your significant other where? because I know that there were times with your significant other where you were really happy, so that's easy. But were there times with your significant other where you would be sitting with him, and there would be a moment where you'd be like, "Wow, this is incredible! Like, this is a really amazing experience that's happening right now."
Absolutely.
That is the distinction that I'm talking about. There's a difference between when you're just like experiencing the love and joy and everything, and when you like pull back and say like, wow, what I'm looking at right now from this observing seat is really special. So like similarly, like with your like with this like exercise that I'm giving you, like eat a meal and then like sit in the seat of like, oh, I feel super self-indulgent right now, because that's going to be different than just like than being sucked into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And keep in touch, dude. I think that I feel like I'm helping, and I would like to help as much as I can. The reason that I started these Tentacle Tantras is because I know that this is a strength of mine and like a thing of value that I can provide to my community. And that's the main reason why I'm doing it. Like in terms of content, like yes, it is content, but like it's not like the most successful content. It's just like really the reason that I'm doing it is to try to provide value to my community. And it seems like from what you've communicated that it's providing you a lot of value, and so I'd love to continue to do that as much as I can.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's been quite a bit of value. I mean, more than I get out of the average therapy session, that's for sure.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's a huge compliment. All right. Any final thoughts? Wrap up. Questions.
I think that's about it.
Okay.
A lot of things I have to just observe and look for my own answers and just live.
Yep. Yep. And good luck. Good luck. And like I said, keep in touch. And the final thing that I sort of want to end with is that like I'm really hopeful, dude. I think that sometimes when we ourselves are lost in hopelessness, somebody else coming up and saying like I have a lot of hope can really go a long way, especially when they mean it, which I do, because like I wouldn't say I have a lot of hope if I didn't think so. I I would probably feel pretty bad about this session if I was like, man, I feel totally hopeless. I don't know how he's gonna get out of this, and I don't at all. I feel really hopeful. I feel really uplifted by this conversation, and I think that I think that you're gonna heckin' be a cool full-bodied tentacle monster soon. I don't know. In my mind, you're some sort of like half Cthulhu type beast, you know, like half your body is gone, but like it's like writhing tentacles everywhere, and like the tentacles are slowly like growing back. Anyway, doesn't matter. Anyway, I have a lot of hope for you, dude.
That would be some cool art, actually.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man, can you? All right. Don't. All right. I don't want to like. I don't want to ask for free art or anything. So only do this like if you want to do this. But I think it'd be a cool. I don't want to call it an exercise because that feels manipulative to like use this as but I think it'd be a really cool thing for you to do, to like draw that, like visualize yourself as like half of a person and like draw that out. I think that'd be a super cool thing, not only to show me because I'd be super heckin' excited about it, but like to show your stream and like talk about. I think that'd be really cool. Anyway, thank you for doing this with me, and
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for doing that.
And good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.